Welcome back to the show where we run you through all the Dolphins news you need to know about. After we run you through the news you need to know about, we run you through the fan Q&A where we answer fans' questions. This first news story, I don't know really where to start with this one. There's so much to talk about. I guess we'll start with the injuries. We'll start with Preston Williams. So if you guys missed last week's episode, he is doubtful to return for this season. That was a report from, I believe, ESPN. I cannot remember, but we didn't report that. We read that report in last week's episode. Nothing has changed with that. Mike Gesicki is, quote, still too early to tell from Brian Flores. And then Ian Rappaport of NFL Network said the same thing about Mike Gesicki and the shoulder injury, so we really don't know about that yet. Jakeem Grant is week to week with the hamstring, and Javonte Parker is a week to week with a hamstring as well. So both of those are hamstring injuries, because I know that was listed as a leg injury for Javonte Parker, but Ian Rappaport reported that it was a hamstring injury, so it's a little bit less serious, because what if it's just listed just a leg? Your mind kind of wanders to a bunch of different injuries, so that doesn't seem as serious as it could have been, and I probably should have done this video later, but it is what it is. Like, I wanted to kind of wait for the injury, but I really did want to talk about, really do this episode because there's a lot to talk about. But yeah, so a lot of injuries. It sucks. I mean, Tua was without a lot of weapons, and it seems to kind of just be normal. I mean, we haven't had a really good backfield or a healthy backfield pretty much this entire season. And that's just, our coaching staff does a great job, and I think Chris did a decent job, or not decent, he did a good job of getting his pretty good depth on the offensive side of the ball. I shouldn't have even said decent, because it is actually pretty good if you think about it with Ahmed. You got Gaskin in there, who wasn't even chartered to be the starter. Yeah, but this is a very depleted offense right now, at the skill positions especially. And Mike Gesicki was carrying an underwhelming passing attack for the Dolphins on Sunday. And with his injury, Lynn Bowden looked good. We'll talk about that later. But even with everybody healthy, this offense had its shortcomings in terms of playmaking ability. We've talked about that so many times on the show. A lot of the guys are kind of have the same skill set. We really still don't have a slot receiver. I think Lynn Bowden finally is establishing himself as that, though, which is really good. Great news. I thought he did a really good job of moving around the offense, and especially inside when he played in the slot, he did a very good job. He was someone that Tua could rely on a couple times in that game to keep the chains moving. If Matt Collins makes a couple catches here or there, I know that ball was a little bit underthrown, but he still, to me, that's a pretty easy catch in the National Football League. It sucks that we're dealing with all these injuries, but we did have, I think the silver lining here is, if you want to call it that, Lynn Bowden at least is establishing himself as, it reminds me a little bit of Jarvis in terms of what he brings after the catch. He's got a little physicality to him. He can make people miss in the open field, and that's something this offense has desperately needed all season. So he provides a little bit of that, and he's pretty good in the slot, not just as a kind of a one-dimensional player. He's a good route runner as well, and I think he can bring that kind of. He's not as big as a Deebo Samuel, or who else am I thinking of that's is used in that same way. I mean, Jarvis is used in that same way. I'm skipping on a name. A.J. Brown is used a little bit like that, but not really. He's more of a traditional receiver, outside receiver. But Lynn Bowden, I think, can be that for us. He's a little bit less physical. He's a little bit more of an elusive type of a player than those guys, but I think he reminds me a little bit of those guys, and what he can do after the catch and some of the slot things. He fits the slot position perfectly. He gives you a lot of yards after catch, rack yards, and he's a good route runner, and he's got pretty good hands as well. So, I don't know why. I guess, obviously, Lynn Bowden took a little bit longer to learn the offense. He was traded here. But he probably should have been the slot receiver a lot earlier. And I know he was on the COVID list and stuff like that a couple of times, so kind of didn't shake out that way. But at least Lynn Bowden, I think, and it's kind of a little too late a little in a weird way, but I think he can definitely be a pretty, I think he has a bright future at that position, which is good. But other than that, this offensive attack is severely depleted. And if we're going to, Tua's going to have to carry as a rookie, and he did do it in this game against the Chiefs with a bunch of nothing to throw to, really, especially on the outside. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully we get a little bit healthier. We're gonna do a new story right here. This is a move the Dolphins could possibly make to help the passing attack. I think we're all familiar with him. So let's get into the next news story. This next news story comes from Google, really, or anywhere other sporting site where they list free agents. Kenny Stills is a free agent, ladies and gentlemen. He is a free agent. He is still a free agent when the Texans let him go. I think he would be a very good fit in this offense, especially with Chan Gailey. Chan does a really good job of putting people in positions that they succeed. I think Lynn Bone's another great example of that. He's done a great job with Mike Gesicki. He's done a great job with the tight ends as well. He puts players in position to succeed, and he adjusts his scheme to them, which is probably his greatest strength. Even though sometimes the game plan and the philosophy kind of gets in the way of him a little bit, and I think it did in this game. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But Chan is a very good offensive coordinator, and I think him in this offense with Kenny Stills providing a deep threat, and a better deep threat than Jakeem Grant, because Kenny, I know he doesn't have the greatest hands in the world, but he's a better receiver than Jakeem Grant. He doesn't bring the game-breaking ability that Jakeem does on some of those sweeps and stuff, but I think Kenny is more than capable of being an outside receiver, and he can play inside as well, but we don't really need him to do that. But I think he gives us a different element to the offense. He's more of like a Will Fuller type. I think he can stretch the field and help out the run game a little bit because of that. Because right now, who do we really have that can beat you over the top? And the thing is he's a better route runner than Jakeem Grant. So when you call those deep shots, he's going to get more separation. It's going to be easier throws for Tua to make. It's hard to make some of those throws to Jakeem when you have to lay it out 80 yards every single time. He gets a little bit of separation, and yes, he can run under it. But if he was a better route runner, it would be much easier to throw to him because you could throw earlier to him. You won't have to wait so long to get the ball out. So I think Kenny can provide that. I think he's a better deep threat than Jakeem. And he's obviously, I think, a little bit better than DP is because he's less physical. He's faster. So I think this would be a great signing for the Dolphins, especially with all the injuries. And I think he could provide a little bit of offense for us that we need. And obviously he's familiar with everything Dolphins. You know, he's coming to a better organization. And I think Chan Gailey calling plays and how he can kind of makeshift something for Kenny Stills where it won't be such a learning curve because he adjusts his personnel anyway. And plus he's been doing it all year long anyway with some of these guys coming in and out. So I don't think this is going to be a big deal for him to do. And like I said, the comfortability with Kenny, with the city and with the team and the organization, the facilities and stuff of that nature, I think all of those things are positives, and I think he would be a great signing for us. And he's still a good receiver in the National Football League. He just has dealt with a lot of injuries. If he could stay healthy, he's a good 3 on any team. So I would love the signing. And like I said before, I think he would be probably the best deep threat on the team, and he does give you a different element to the offense. And you could add Kenny's speed with Jakeem's speed when he comes back. I think that could present some problems for defenses as well. The offense gets a little bit faster. You add a different type of a player to the offense. You can call different plays for him. He's a really good route runner down the field. He always has been. He can get more separation than Jakeem can. So as a deep threat, make some of those down the field throws a little bit easier. And for all of those reasons, I think he'd be a great signing. So I think that's just one option the Dolphins have to really help the offense with all these injuries. Because, we're going to get some pretty decently good defenses the last, I would say, 2 out of the 3 games that we're going to play. New England is by far the best defense that we're going to play because of Bill Belichick, and plus, the best thing that we do is pass the football, and the best thing the Patriots do is defend the pass. So that's going to be an interesting matchup, and I think, depending on who's healthy, that'll be pretty much a defensive battle. And then the last two games, I don't know. Those defenses aren't great. I think the Chiefs' defense is pretty comparable to both of those defenses. I think the Chiefs' pass rush is better than both of those defenses is, with Frank Clark, and Chris Jones is just an absolute animal. The last two teams we're going to play, all three of the last teams we're going to play don't have that kind of a pass rush. So I think that's a big advantage for the Dolphins, which is good, because they have a good pass blocking offensive line in my opinion. So yeah, offensive help is needed at the skill positions. Hopefully we can get it. I think, like I said, I think we can get by against the Bills and the Raiders, though. I don't think it's that big of a deal. But the Patriots, which play a lot of man coverage, do some creative things up front with their defensive line, that's going to be, something that we're going to have to hopefully get some people back for. And we're at home. So I think that's also a positive. So I don't know why I started rambling about the last three games, but I did want to bring that up because you do look at the roster right now and like, okay, what are bad matchups for us? And like I said, I think the toughest game for us is going to be that Patriots game, in my opinion, at least. I think the advantages of the team that they have is great ones, to be honest with you. With us being at home, Tua is playing good. The defense is playing better than it did before. We've already played them once. The defense has some sort of an idea of how to maybe watch the tape and see what they did wrong and how they attacked the scheme. So I'm not saying that this is a terrible matchup for the Dolphins. I just think it's probably going to be the toughest game out of the last three with the way the roster is right now. I don't want to sound, I don't know why, but I think I don't want to sound super negative or anything, because I still think we have a good chance in that game. But yeah, let's move on. I know I'm rambling too much. We got to move on. It sucks, all these injuries. Hopefully Kenny Stills will become a Dolphin. I think that would be great. So yeah, let's move on to the game, ladies and gentlemen. Let's talk about this game. This game was crazy for a lot of different reasons. It was absolutely nuts. I don't know where to start. I guess we'll start with we'll start with defense, because I think ending with the offense is appropriate because of how they played and some of the shortcomings that they did have, even though it was a beautiful performance by our quarterback, who carried a depleted offense for sure. I don't think that's even debatable. The dude almost passed for 400 yards. Or no, excuse me. He passed for over 300 yards. All right, so let's start with the defense. So Patrick Mahomes had 2 touchdowns with 3 interceptions. The defense turned him over the Chiefs' offense 4 times, which is crazy. Tyreek Hill finished with 1 reception for 32 yards and a touchdown, which is, if I saw that, I'm like, we're probably going to win this game. Unfortunately, it didn't shake out that way. Travis Kelce really carried the team in the passing game, and Reek had a great day running the football with some nice creative plays by Andy Reid. Obviously, he had the 2 touchdowns in this game that were huge for that team. But for the most part, the run defense was really good. Clyde Edwards-Helaire finished with 16 carries for 32 yards with an average of 2 yards a carry. And Le'Veon Bell did nothing. He had 2 carries for 21 yards. So the run defense was non-existent in this game. And the Chiefs are a pretty good running team. They're like mid-level running team in terms of total offense. I think they're 16th in the NFL, which isn't bad. And they have talented running backs. And the Dolphins completely shut that aspect of their game down. But to turn them over 4 times and still lose, it hurts. There's a couple plays that I want to break down after we break down the defense that I think if they were just a little bit different, this game would have been a lot different. And there's just 3 plays that really bother me from this game. But defensively, Byron Jones, this secondary is for real. It is an absolutely disgusting defense. It is so fun to watch every single week. They do such a good job. The game plan is always on point. The defense they always play hard. They're flying around. They bring a ton of energy to the team. The linebackers in this game played awesome without Kyle Van Noy, with Jerome Baker with that amazing sack on Patrick Mahomes. I don't know what else to say. I mean, schematically, I really loved the game plan. The Chiefs made plays. I don't know what else to say. The Chiefs are one of the greatest offenses to ever touch a field. I don't think it's even a debate. I thought they did a really good job of taking away what was there at first, and Patrick Mahomes just does what Patrick Mahomes does, and that's what makes this offense so hard to defend, is they're super talented, and you might win on a play, but then Patrick Mahomes breaks the pocket, and he either scrambles for 8 yards, or he scrambles, and somebody comes up in the secondary, and he hits you over the top. His playmaking ability just brings this offense to a different level of difficult to stop, and the fact that the defense was able to pick off Patrick Mahomes 3 times, which was a first in his career, I believe, is amazing. The secondary is real. This defense is for real. And I think I've said it all season long. It's a special defense. And they're going to be together for a long time. And I think the Dolphins would add on to it. You heard that, I saw something saying that, Patrick Peterson would be a great fit. I think it was on Bleacher Report. He grew up a Dolphins fan. That would be interesting to have Patrick Peterson in this lineup. Maybe he'd play a little bit of free safety, maybe some slot corner. But if something like that happened, my point is, if the Dolphins add anything to this defense, which they don't need to do, obviously, the sky is the limit. That defense is so talented, so fast. Like I said, they play with so much energy, and they have a lot of fun out there. There's a couple of things defensively that I think they almost played a perfect game against this Chiefs team. They had one mental mistake, and that really hurt, and we'll talk about that right now. It really hurt the team, and if it wasn't for this one mental mistake, like I said, I think they could pretty much play perfectly the entire day. Oh, and before I forget to mention it, if Xavier Howard doesn't win Defensive Player of the Year, I don't know. I mean, he could break the all-time interceptions record in terms of most interceptions in a single season. He's on pace to do that. If he does that, then they got to hand him the Defensive Player of the Year award. I know a corner won it last year. This would probably be the first time in the history of the league that a corner would win it back-to-back seasons. But there's no way I know he's going to get first-team All-Pro. There's no doubt in my mind. But he needs to get Defensive Player of the Year. Before I forget, he is dude, the pick that he had, not only was it an impressive interception, but the fact that X has the speed to keep up with Reek like that on a deep corner, I didn't even know he had that in him. But he does. X is really good. And this defense, like I said, only allowed one reception for 30. It was a touchdown, and it was good coverage, but our safety messed it up. One touchdown. Is that right? No, he has to have more receiving yards than that. Hold on. Reek had 3 catches for 79 yards. There you go. 3 catches for 79 yards. I was reading the rushing. My bad, guys. That's still pretty good. So let's talk about this. I think this was the biggest, and like I said, I think the defense would have played a perfect game if it wasn't for this. Because they did turn him over 4 times, and usually when you do that to an offense, you win the game. But pretty much every single time. But the offense we'll talk about that here in a second. But defensively, I think there were 2 things that I was surprised about in this game. The first part was that Eric Rowe kind of had a hard time with Travis Kelce the entire game, who had 8 receptions for 136 yards. He really carried the passing game. Kept the chains moving on a couple of pretty crucial third downs, especially the one where he mosses Eric Rowe. That was a big third down that they kept going, and I think they ended up getting points on that drive, if I'm not mistaken. Or that was the drive that X got the interception. I can't remember, but that was Travis really gave Eric Rowe a very hard time, and he's so good. He runs his routes like a receiver does. So he's basically, he leads the NFL in receiving, not just for tight ends, but the entire NFL. So he's just a different breed of a tight end. That surprised me. And the other thing that really surprised me was, this didn't surprise me. Let's take out the surprises in this. So Bobby McCain gets hurt. Kalen Fedulum comes in the game. Caitlin. That's not his name. Caitlin is not his name. Fedulum comes in the game. And I think it's Clayton Fedulum? I don't know. Anyway, Fedulum comes in the game. He's a great special teams player. He's a good backup safety. He's got a lot of speed. But really gave up 2 touchdowns in this game. He took a terrible angle on the reverse to Tyreek Hill. It was an awful angle. He kind of played it really bad, in my opinion. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I have to go back and look at it. But I felt like he could have played that a little bit better. And Reek just goes down the sideline for a touchdown. Then, this is the worst play, one of the worst plays of the entire game. And there's 3 plays in this game that really bother me. And I guess we'll get into it after I talk about this play. Tyreek Hill runs a post route. Fedulum, I don't know what he thought was going to happen. I don't know if he thought he was going to break it in a little bit shallower or break it in as like it was more of an in route, like a more of a deep in or a deep middle route than it was like a deep post that was going to score a touchdown. But he takes 2 steps in on Tyreek Hill, and it's game over. Reek just runs by him. I think there's another play in this game earlier when Bobby was at that position where they tried a deep ball to Tyreek Hill, and we were all over it. We did a really good job of double teaming him, and Bobby really wasn't. He was like, okay, the corner has everything underneath, and I think this is how Brian coached it. I'm not joking. I have everything over the top. He was in a total bail technique. If Tyreek breaks in on that deep play that I'm talking about, the first deep play, Bobby has no part of that at all. It's just all up to the corner to defend that. And I think that's how they were coached this game on those double teams. So when Fedulum sees this post route coming towards him, right, he just should bail out. He should just bail out. And maybe I'm just not remembering it because I've seen it twice. And I hope I'm remembering this right because then I'm sounding like a total idiot. But he takes 2 steps into the post instead of carrying it. Instead of just in a total bit, like if Tyreek is running towards you like that, just get over the top. The corner's got underneath. And to be honest with you, the corner had good coverage underneath of him. Let me just, you know what? I'm going to pull this play up really quick. I know this is not great content, but I want to make sure I'm right about this. And we might have to cut here. We'll cut here and I'll come back. I want to make sure I'm right about this. Okay, so the only thing I really got wrong about this, it wasn't fantastic coverage underneath, but the safety has no business. He thinks that Tyreek, so I'm totally right about this. It was a play action fake. Patrick Mahomes rolls out to the right. It was a little bit of a corner post, but not really. And it kind of gets the corner a little bit on the fake corner to the post. And Fedulum, for some reason, thinks he's breaking it in a little bit more shallow, like I said before. And he takes 4 steps up, like he's about to pick off Patrick Mahomes. I have no idea why he does this. And Tyreek Hill just runs behind him for the touchdown. So, like I said before, I know that wasn't great, me cutting there. That's not good defense, and that's not good safety play. Like I said before we played this game, you have to really make them work for their touchdowns, and we did a good job of that for the most part, the entire game. But that play was not a good example of that. And Fedulum really messed 2 plays up this game that gave the Chiefs 14 points. Like I said, I think he kind of took a terrible angle. Tyreek kind of steps inside, goes outside, and gets Fedulum, and he scores a touchdown. It was a good play by Reek. Better angle by the tight end, the safety, maybe force Reek inside. Maybe we have a better shot of hitting him, tackling him on that reverse play. And then the play action roll out to the right, and a little bit of a corner post. I have no idea why he thinks. I think he thinks, as I accidentally pull up the video, I think he thinks that he's going to break it in a little bit more shallow. That's why he takes the 4 steps up, and then Reek just doesn't run the route he thinks he's going to run, and just runs right past him. So just not the greatest safety play in the world there. Let me see who had the underneath coverage. I believe it was. I think it was Xavier. It was Xavier, and like I said, it was a little bit of a corner post there, and just for some reason, Fedulum decides to take 4 steps up. Just a really bad. If you look at it in real time, it's not. In real time, it's even worse. Like Fedulum, just a terrible defensive player right there. So yeah, Fedulum did not have a good game. Let's just put it that way. And really cost us a touchdown there. That was one of the plays that if you go back and look at this game, that's like, man, that's such an easy play to correct, and it is a huge mental mistake by the safety, kind of guessing on that play instead of just reacting. And then you go to the other 2 plays that I want to mention, and we'll say this before we get into the offensive side of the ball. To really recap the defense, they played great. They're amazing. Xavier's amazing. The entire defense is amazing. They're fun to watch. The scheme's great. They're really well coached. The game plan was awesome. I have no gripes with anything that happened in this game except Fedulum's play. I think Fedulum was by far the weakest link on this defense and really gave up 2 big plays in this game. And especially the last one. The first one I'm okay with because Reek is a really, really talented player, and I can give him making a play there. That's fine. But the second one is unacceptable. I mean, that's just bad safety play in my opinion. So, in saying all that, like I said, the defense did great. Almost played perfect if it wasn't for just really the one mental mistake. That wasn't, it was just one, kind of on one player. I think Bobby, there was a similar play earlier in the game where Bobby just carries it over the top, and that's what Fedulum should have done. He didn't do it. So let's move on from that. The other big play in this game is the punt return. You can't give up special teams touchdowns in this game, and that was a huge one. McCole Hardman broke my heart, goes up the sideline, and at that point I thought they were just going to, obviously they go up, I think 21 or 20 at that point. And I was like, all right, this is, broke, just like, this sucks, I thought we would play a little bit more of a competitive game. They kind of just broke it open in the second half. It was a competitive game throughout the entire first half. We missed a lot of plays in that first half with some of those turnovers that the offense couldn't capitalize on. And that's why we're going to talk about the offense right now. So, yeah, the punt return was killer. You can't give up a special teams touchdown against this game. And, obviously, the missed field goal. So, special teams, unexpectedly and surprisingly, kind of a hindrance in this game. And did not expect that to happen. That's for sure. And if you go into the last play, and this is how we're going to kick off the offense. There was no running game in this game for the most part. DeAndre Washington really didn't do anything. Chris Jones was an issue on the interior the entire game, was just wreaking havoc the entire game. He had 13 carries for 35 yards. It was not good. By the way, Lynn Bowden had a great game. 7 receptions for 82 yards. Obviously, Mike Gesicki with the 2 touchdowns. He's been a monster in December. He was a monster in December last year, too. So he's just he's having really back-to-back pretty good Decembers. Hopefully we get him back pretty early here. Sorry for the weird pause, but my cat had opened the door there, and I had to go shut the door. So just kind of distracted me a little bit. What were we talking about? We're talking about Mike Gesicki. He's having a great December. Lydon Bowden, like I said, is coming on as a slot receiver. But let's get to the third and final thing to really kick off the breakdown of the offense and what I thought about the offense. Tua had one bad play this entire game. And this is the third and final thing that I really thought we missed out on. With the punt return and the really bad play by Fedulum. This is another play that I wish we had back. And it's, I believe, third down. And we're in the red zone. And we're knocking on the door. And we run a really nice route with Jakeem Grant underneath. He's wide open. He's going to walk into the end zone. Tua doesn't see him, and he ends up taking a one-on-one shot. Really, it was really a one-on-one shot to Javonte Parker, who usually makes those catches, drops the football. And I know it was a very tough, difficult catch, but he drops the football, and we miss out on 7 points. We end up having to settle for a field goal. So that was a huge play in this game. And Tua played an amazing game. He carried, like I said, a depleted offense, and just missed out on that one. And usually he makes those reads. And it was an easy it was a layup of a touchdown, and he just didn't see it, unfortunately. And really those 3 plays, I think, were the biggest. Really, other than the missed field goal, you could add that in there with the 4 biggest plays that really kind of hurt us the entire game. And I think if we just tweak those plays a little, and if we could have those plays back, and it kind of ends up a little bit differently, this game I think is just a little bit different. And you really can't. I mean, obviously settling for 3 instead of 7 there is a big deal. And usually it's weird. Tua usually makes that read there. Unfortunately, he did not. And so let's get into the offense. I want to start with the play calling. I hated the play calling at the start of the game. I thought it was more of the same, like, all right, let's try to establish the run game, some bootlegs. It's like, why are we doing this again? And I know that I think that the pushback against that theory is that you have to run the ball, you have to keep Patrick Mahomes on the bench. But our defense is good enough. If you pass 50,000 times against it, you're going to probably turn the football over. And that's what happened in this game. So I thought it was kind of like, okay, I understand what we're trying to do, but it hasn't worked all year. And I know it would be nice to have a running game, but ladies and gentlemen, it's not showing the heck up. It's not going to happen. Stop trying to do it. So I thought early on in the game, I was like, I hated the play calling. It was like the same issues I've had with it in the past, really not letting Tua play to his strengths, and because he's such a good, and one of the things he did amazing at college was dissecting defenses and using his head to manipulate the back end, getting the ball out quick. He's super accurate. He showed that in this game again with some of the blitzes coming at him. He was able to, especially when they started blitzing us in some of those empty formations, he did a great job of finding the open man, making a quick decision, and making a very accurate throw. And I think it just kind of just hurts Tua and what he does best. So, but as the game went on, we completely kind of flipped it. We went empty. We went hurry up. I just wish we would have done it earlier in the game. And I think, we would have had better results if we did. And we just didn't do it. And I don't understand. It's like, okay, we're going to knock our head against the wall, and when it doesn't work, we fall back on what we do well. And we should stop doing that, is basically what I think. Chan Gailey, other than that, after really like the first 2 drives, probably 3 or 4 drives of the game, we really started being super aggressive, and Tua just started shredding the Chiefs, especially in that no huddle empty formation, and not just in the empty formation with some of those no huddle, some of those the same things that I've been talking about, especially that get the run game going with the fake speed sweep. It's the same thing the Chiefs do. The sweep over to the right, you can hand it off to Jakeem Grant. You could hand it off up the middle. It could be a play action pass. There's so many things you can do off of it. We did a little bit of that in the up-tempo offense as well, which does really well, and I think is one of our better formations as an offense. And so, like I said, after the first 3 or 4 drives, I thought we really started getting to a little bit of an aggressive mentality, and that's when we started really kind of clicking, and Tua started, like I said, playing to Tua's strengths, and he started to kind of dice it up. And I want to talk about Tua. The one pick he threw in this game, I thought that was a good read. And I know that people are going to complain about his arm strength and all that stuff, but it still touched Jakeem Grant's hands. Whether you want to argue it did, and I know it's a tough catch, but it touched his hands, okay? Both his hands were on the football. So you got to make that catch, in my opinion. Sometimes as a receiver, you have to make a play. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. The only 2 guys on this team that are making plays like that in terms of, okay, maybe it's not the greatest throw, but I am a really good player, I'm going to bring in this catch, are Mike Gesicki and Javonte Parker. God forbid Jakeem Grant come down with 1 contested football, for God's sakes. I mean, the one that he had in Monday Night Football with Jay Cutler threw to him was pretty much the same underthrown pass, except he caught that one. Okay? So, again, I'm not mad at Tua. I don't know why it just ticks me off with Jakeem. He drops the pass against the Bengals. He drops I wouldn't say this is all on Jakeem. It's a tough catch. I understand that. But it's for the love of God, Jakeem. If you're going to be a deep threat, sometimes you have to come down with those kind of footballs. You just have to. So yeah, and I think, like I said, I think the most impressive thing about Tua is when he is in this up-tempo offense, his accuracy is unreal, and his quick releases they're deadly, dude. And his playmaking ability is really nice too. Some of the plays he made outside of the pocket to Matt Collins. I mean, that throw on the run was so beautifully placed. He had a great game. To me, this was probably his best game because it showed us a lot. Like I said, he carried it. He was the best player on the team, on the offense. He was providing the most playmaking. Him and Lynn Bowden really were carrying the passing game, and then obviously Mike Gesicki added those 2 touchdowns on top of that, but Mike only had 66 yards. Tua was doing all of the heavy lifting the entire game, and like I said, I think that's obviously a very positive sign for Tua, and he looked great. He looked like he was in Alabama again, which was awesome. I think we can all agree that as soon as Tua does get a running back and another receiver, and maybe we get Albert Wilson and Allen Hurns back healthy, this offense is going to be really good next year, and I'm excited to see what Tua does with even more weapons, because I think like I said, I've loved Tua since college. He's really fun to watch, and I think he had a great game in this game. And we talked about some of the negatives, but there's not many of them, or if any, depending on how you look at it. And I think that's it. I think we covered pretty much everything. We covered offensively. We covered the play calling offensively, which, like I said, I thought it would have been nicer to start off the game a little bit faster than we did, a little bit more aggressive. I understand why we didn't, but I still think I think we've seen this offense enough to know what works and what doesn't, and the shortcomings of this team, and it's kind of high time, especially these last 3 games, that we just kind of buy into that, in my opinion. So yeah, and like I said, we already talked about Lynn Bowden and how I think he can actually not only just be a good weapon for us the last 3 games of the year, but I think he's got a really bright future, like I said, as a slot receiver. So I'm excited about that. I think we covered pretty much everything. It would have been nice for Matt Collins to come down with a couple of those catches, but it's okay. It is what it is. Adam Shaheen dropped a straight-up dime from Tua as well. And Antonio Callaway is not what we thought he was. Okay, we can circle that. Antonio Callaway is not what we thought he was. And again, this offense did all of that without Javonte Parker for the most part. So it is what it is, ladies and gentlemen. We came up a yard short and 6 points short, really. It would have been awesome to see Tua if we deflect that ball on that sprint out on 4th and 1. By the way, out of all the plays we lose to, it's a sprint out, which really sucked. But if we just deflected the football, Tua gets a shot to go win the game, that would have been amazing, dude. It would have been amazing. Overall, I'm so happy with the way the defense played. They played out of their minds like they usually do. The offense, I think the silver lining, I think the thing I take away from this game the most is Lynn Bowden has a bright future, and Tua obviously has a very bright future, and is a franchise quarterback, and he will be a great quarterback for a long time. Yeah, he just needs a running back like any other quarterback does, and and another receiver would be nice. And hopefully Kenny Stills is a Dolphin. I feel like I'm missing something to talk about, but I think I don't really, honestly, guys, breaking down that sprint out, there's nothing really to break down. They ran a sprint out, and Tyreek Hill is just really fast off of the line. I think if X could go back and do that play over again, he would have got his hands on him, and I think that would have really disrupted that play. But there's nothing as soon as he got that free release, it's just pretty much a game over, especially on that sprint out. It is what it is. And like I said, I'm proud. I'm proud of the team. They almost beat the defending champs. Really should have beat the defending champs. There's a couple plays where they really beat themselves, and especially with the special team stuff and the stupid play by Federline. But and obviously the misread by Tua, which was his only bad play all day long. But I'm very proud of the team. I'm excited for these last 3 games of the season. This team has a this team has such a bright future, dude. It's unreal. And I never saw this coming with this team. And I'm going to be honest with you guys. I didn't think it was going to be like this, where they are this good, and they're going to be really good for a long time. So let's move on to the fan Q&A, where we answer fans' questions. This first question comes from Mark Jefferson. He says, we should have won by a blowout. That's the first thing. He says, LOL. Secondly, we may need to draft two wide receivers along with 2 backs because most of those guys probably are not coming back next year. Do you agree? Most of them is probably a harsh. I don't know. I think more than most of them are going to come back. I think Ahmed, Gaskin, I think are coming back. Laird probably isn't coming back. Who else is probably not coming back? Most of the receivers, I have a hard time believing are going to stay on their roster. Like Matt Collins, Lynn Bowden's definitely going to still be here. Jakeem Grant's going to still be here because he's kind of just a weapon. He's not a receiver. He's a weapon. But other than those guys, yeah, I don't think anybody's really safe for the most part. So yeah, I think you're going to see a lot of additions to the receiver core for sure, especially I think in free agency and the draft. I think you're going to see that for the Dolphins front office. So I do kind of agree. I think more of them are going to come back than you might think, like I said, but I think the skill positions overall, especially in the starting lineup, is going to be drastically different at the skill position for sure. This next question comes from Ethan. He says, I know you don't like to predict things in the future, but are we making the playoffs? I think we're going to finish 3-0. We're a very good team. And yeah, I will say we'll have a really good shot at doing that. I like the way that, and like I said, if we could get a little bit healthy, maybe we sign Kenny Stills, and and Lynn Bowden continues to play like he is, I think the offense has got a shot. And I think especially the way Tua played, we definitely have a shot to go to the playoff for sure. More than a shot. And we have more of a shot than everybody's giving us credit for. That's for sure. This next question comes from M. Black. He says, Skaggs, give us your biggest needs, either the draft or sign as a free agent to put us over the top next year to beat teams like Kansas City. I would say we need a slot receiver. We need a running back. And I guess maybe we don't even really need a slot receiver. Not specifically a slot receiver. We need another receiver. We need someone who's a playmaker. Similar to what the Bills did with Stephon Diggs, like we need someone like that who could take over a game. We need someone who's another Pro Bowler at the receiver position, and we need someone else at the running back position for sure. And maybe that's Le'Veon Bell. I think he has that one year on his contract. I think he would fit this offense amazingly if that is in free agency. And in terms of free agent receivers, there's a bunch of them. Juju Smith-Schuster would be a great fit for this team. But the Dolphins need another playmaker at the skill position for sure. They need at least two. They need a running back and a receiver. Jamar Chase would be great. Donovan Smith would be amazing. So I think those are two of the biggest needs for sure. And if the Dolphins want to add another defensive player, maybe another outside linebacker who is mainly a pass rusher, if they want to go that route, or they really don't even need that because of the way they run the defense. Maybe you add like someone like a Patrick Peterson to the secondary, but they don't need anything defensively. What they need is just two more playmakers on the offense. That's what they need to be like a top 3 or 4 seed in the AFC for sure. This next question comes from Jag Pack. He says, I hope Albert Wilson comes back next year 100%. He could still be a safety valve for Tua that can score from anywhere on the field. Yes, Albert Wilson is, before he got hurt, dude, was it actually blows my mind thinking about it now, but he was such a good receiver. He brings so much to the offense, whether it's run out yards after the catch. He makes something out of nothing almost every single time when he was a healthy player. He was a big reason we started 3-0 that season. His game against Chicago is legendary. So if he can come back healthy, yes, Albert Wilson would be a huge help to this team, and a huge help to Tua Tagovailoa as well. And again, a year off. I mean, he looked in the end of last year, he was really coming on strong. So I'm hoping that he comes back healthy. This next question comes from SM. He says, any injury news on Preston, Eric Flowers, or Mike Gesicki? Not currently, no. I mean, we kind of discussed that at the beginning of the show. That's pretty much all we know. This next question comes from SM. He says, this good of a defense doesn't come around often. Do you think it can be supported by the offense this season before injury and free agency makes it disappear? Well, most of the guys are under contract, and the guys that would be free agents, I don't think there's many of them this year, because I think Ogba's got another year left, if I'm not mistaken. If he doesn't, he's not. It's going to be very hard to let him leave, and I don't think he will. And the Dolphins have enough cap space to keep him. Shaq Lawson's on a multi-year deal, so there's not a lot of guys that are leaving in free agency that are important. Pretty much the entire defense is going to stay intact for a long time, because a lot of these guys are young rookies or still on their rookie contract. So, to answer your question, SM, really don't have to worry about that too much. The defense definitely will be intact next year for sure. This next question comes from Casey. He says, Dolphins suffer more injuries than other teams. Do you agree? Do you think this game will bring the Dolphins some respect? It should. I don't know if it will. It should. To be that injured and still almost beat the defending champs, and really, like I said, you get one deflection on 4th down. Who knows what happens in that game? The way Tua was playing, it sucks. It is what it is. But I'm pretty satisfied. I was really upset for after the game for an entire day. I was pretty upset about the whole situation. But when you kind of just take a back seat and just look at it, the game did not disappoint. We fought our hearts out, and we did it. Like I said, we did all of that with all of those injuries. So, I definitely think it should have earned his respect, Casey. I don't care if other people don't, but I think it was a nice measuring stick for this team. And when you look at any, great team, they all have those moments. Like a great example of that is when the Giants lost to the Patriots. But obviously they ended up beating. I'm not saying we're going to the Super Bowl and winning it, but I think that's another good example of, okay, this is the measuring stick, and they felt like they could beat anybody after that game. And I think that does that for this team. It's like, okay, we should have probably beat the Chiefs, the defending champs, and it wasn't a mismatch. We were in every single round. If this was a fight, they were in it every single round. And so I think it gives them great confidence as well. This next question comes from Take Me Out. He says, Merry Christmas, Gags. He says, I know there are a lot of... Excuse me, let me start over. He says, I know there are a lot who feel Tua will be a good quarterback. I disagree. Tua is going to be a great quarterback. I have no idea how he accomplished what he did with what was surrounded with... what he was surrounded with spoke volumes. Yes, it was a statement game by Tua. He carried a very depleted offense and made a lot of really good plays. Like I said, I think if I could go back in time and just say, Chan Gailey, listen, he's not a normal rookie. Just let him sling it all over the field. Do this up-tempo offense. Get in some empty formations. Here's what works for this team. His stats would look a lot different. And not that his stats are bad, because they're actually really good, but I think the feel of him would be a lot different. And I think we really kind of hampered ourselves because of that, because of some of the losses we had earlier in the year and holding his hand. Tua doesn't need his hand to be held, and I think this game proves that. He carried, as a rookie, an offense. I can't say that about another Dolphins rookie quarterback since Dan Marino. Tannehill never carried, especially as a rookie, he never carried an offense. Tua did on Sunday. This next question comes from TR3MC. He says, Hey, Skaggs, Miami lost to the Chiefs through special teams, I think is what he meant to say. Other than just their offense, seems the special teams run back and the safety played a big role in the win. But when Miami wins, this is what it's frowned upon. Is this true? What the heck what does that mean? Hey, Skaggs, Miami lost the Chiefs through special ways other than just their offense. Seems the special teams run back and the safety played a big role in the win. But when Miami wins this way, it's frowned upon. Is this true? I see what you're saying. So you're saying when the Chiefs do it, it's not a problem, but when the Dolphins do it, it's a problem. I don't know why that's frowned upon. I can't really answer that question. I don't know why I didn't understand the question when I first read it. But yeah, I see what you're saying. I don't know. Winning is winning. I don't care how you do it. Winning is winning. It's stupid. People that say that kind of stuff are ridiculous. This next question comes from JackPack18. He says, Could we please get rid of Jakeem Grant? Yes, he's very fast, but his hands are unreliable, and I'm pretty sure he's never finished a whole season due to injury. I just feel this is a great question, Jag. I just feel like they can find another fast little guy with better hands. This is exactly what I was talking about earlier with Kenny Stills. He's just a better receiver than Jakeem. Like I said, he separates easier, so the deep throws aren't so contested all the time. Because he's a better route runner. And yeah, Jakeem's got to catch some of those footballs, man. He really does. I completely agree with you. I wouldn't get rid of him because he's such a good special teams player, and he is a good weapon. Like, he's a good gadget guy. This next question comes from AMV. He says, Hey, Skaggs, I thought Tua played well, but he did not get much help in the run game, and guys kept dropping the football. How can we find consistency in the receiver position in the next few games where we need to win them? And then he says, fins up. Well, those guys have to play better because the Dolphins can't do much in terms of reshaping that group. Antonio Callaway has to play better. He's played terrible and he got a lot of snaps in this game, and he didn't do anything. Lynn Bowden needs to continue to be... 82 yards from Lynn Bowden is what we need, especially all of those mainly came from the slot position. So hopefully that continues. And yeah, I think someone like Kenny Stills would be a huge addition, especially if we're without Mike Gesicki. Because Javonte and Mike Gesicki would be huge down these last few games in December. And I really felt like in this game, and I hope Chan doesn't mess it up, but I really felt like since Tua did so well, where it was kind of all on him, it was all on him, I think Chan, hopefully we found something. And we just stick with it the last 3 games. I think seeing Tua do what Tua did on Sunday hopefully allows Chan to be a little bit more aggressive. And I think the offense is going to be a lot better for it. So to answer your question about consistency, AMV, I think that's probably the biggest thing, is just kind of let Tua go. This next question comes from Richard. He says the Dolphins should draft Javette, Williams, running back from North Carolina. He had over 200 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns against Miami. Another Ronnie Brown. I don't want another Ronnie Brown. I know people love Ronnie Brown. I don't really want to think about Ronnie Brown. I think he's one of the more overrated Dolphins of all time, and a lot of that has to do what we could have had instead of Ronnie Brown. But I think Ronnie Brown only had one 1,000-yard season. I love Ronnie Brown. I would love Ronnie Brown right now. But if I had to wish for a running back, it would be a little bit better than Ronnie Brown. No disrespect to Ronnie Brown. I'm not trying to disrespect Ronnie Brown, but I'm just saying. And I don't know anything really about this Williams dude. I love Najee Harris and Etienne from Clemson, but I need to watch more running backs for sure in college football. This next question comes from Beef. He says, hey, Skaggs, as much as Coach Flores has done a tremendous job of rebuilding this Miami Dolphins franchise, especially comparing it to last season, how do you think Coach and Andy Reid helped the Kansas City Chiefs from being irrelevant to Super Bowl champions? He did a really good job of acquiring talent, made some bold moves. Obviously, the Patrick Mahomes move, people don't talk about it a lot, but it was a bold move at the time. So I think the biggest thing Andy Reid did was just stability, and great play calling, and he just acquired really nice talent. And people forget, when he took over the Chiefs, they had like 12 Pro Bowlers, and I'm not joking. It was some high amount of Pro Bowlers the year before he took over. The Chiefs just didn't have a quarterback, and their coaching staff was terrible. All right, but that Chiefs team was talented before he got there. This next question comes from Beef. He says, hey, Skaggs, on the play at 3 minutes left of the second quarter, the catch that Jakeem Grant tried to make while jumping in midair gets pushed off by Rashard Fenton, and then bounces and picked off by Tyrann Mathieu. Do you think that should have been called pass interference, because that was a call that should have been made? I don't know if that was pass. I would have to go back and look at it. Mike, listen, Jakeem just has to be better, man. He's doesn't. We talked about Jakeem enough. You guys understand that. I think I would have to go back and look at it. At the time, it wasn't egregious enough for me to be like, oh, that was pass interference. But I don't know. Jakeem's got to play better. This next question comes from Ethan. He says, it seems like under Gase, we would win by a little or lose by a lot, but under Flores, we win big or lose close. I love that. I hate comparing those two. They're very different. I mean, obviously, you would rather oh my god, dude! Comparing those two is like water and oil. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I just don't love the way you put that. But yeah, I see what you're saying there. This next question comes from Tech Me Out. He says, with the Dolphins sitting with the 5th overall pick in the draft and I'm not trying to bag on you. Who asked that question? Ethan. I'm just saying, just to compare Flores and Adams, it makes you kind of a little bit. This next question comes from Take Me Out. He says, with the Dolphins sitting with the 5th overall pick in the draft and high likely we won't pick any higher than 4, if 2 quarterbacks are picked with the 1 and 2, at 3, who do you take at 4, or do you trade back? I don't know where Jamar Chase is projected to go or Donovan Smith, but that might be a good trade back spot. I don't know. I would have to see where those guys are projected. This next question comes from SM. He says, the Dolphins could have had their pick at running back at the bottom of the first round, Clyde Edwards, Jonathan Taylor, or Dobbins, but they went with Noah Igbenogany, a third corner. They say hindsight is 2020. Knowing the way the season would play out, what would your pick have been at that spot? I think the thing I would do 1,000% differently than the Dolphins did, I would have traded up, because we had a ton of picks in that draft. I would have traded up in the first round and drafted Justin Jefferson. I think that's what I would have done if I could go back in time. This next question comes from Last World Productions. He says, what's up, Skaggs? This is an observation, not a question, per se. At what point does the Dolphins realize that this is not a team set up to run the ball first, or play action down the stretch? We saw Tua become a night and day difference when they spread it out, when we will start sticking to what we are good at when will we start sticking to what we're good at on that side of the football? Sorry. When will we start sticking with it? I don't know. I think if this doesn't change their minds, I don't know what does. Because Tua showed that he's great in that. Not just good, but great. So we'll see. I hope, like I said, I think the two things that this game does for the team in terms of morale is, like I said, it's very similar to when the Giants played the Patriots, right? It's like, okay, the measuring stick was there. We felt like we could beat them. And then you feel like you can beat anybody because that was the best team in the NFL. So when that happens, when you play the best team in the league, you feel like you could beat anybody. And then I think that's a great thing. And then the other thing is, I think they found something in the offense that they weren't sure that they had before because they didn't have the confidence in it. I think if you don't have the confidence in it now, then I don't know what else you need to see really. And yeah, I really don't. I think that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I think we did it. I think we did it. I feel like this episode was a little bit more spaced out. Could have done probably a little bit better job. Some of the questions and the reading of them weren't the greatest. But other than that, I thought it was a pretty decent episode. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys have a great... Well, we're going to do a video before Christmas, so we'll see you guys again before that. But I hope you guys do have a happy Christmas. And everything's going well for you guys. So that is it, ladies and gentlemen. I am Skags83. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. And I will see you guys in the next one.